What is going on, all you awesome superhero aficionados? This is the Heroes and Mutants podcast, your number one source for superhero talk. I am your host, Erik and today it's just me. This video is going to be a little different than what you're used to. Instead of doing an actual podcast with all the guys, I'm going to be doing more of a vlog to share a really cool experience. I got to go to Comic-Con and it was awesome. So, we bought these tickets to Comic-Con back in 2019. Yeah, we bought them back in 2019. We had been trying to go for a while, and if you don't know, there's like a lottery pick that you have to go. You log into a website and you're trying to get these tickets. Meanwhile, I'm trying to get them. My wife's trying to get them. We have multiple browsers open. And we've tried several times before, but in 2019, we finally got in and we were able to buy those tickets for 2020. You know what happened in 2020. So after that, it didn't come back. Comic-Con didn't come back until this year, 2022. And there was a lot of anticipation around it. There was a lot of excitement around it. Everyone was really anxious to see what was going to come out of Comic-Con. And it did not disappoint. Overall, I'd say it was probably one of the greatest experiences as a comic book superhero lover, nerd, geek, whatever you want to call it. It's just a great experience to go to something like that with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people and just share this love for different fandoms. And it was really cool to be able to do that. Again, it's my first Comic-Con, so I wanted to do as much as possible. And that includes go to as many panels as possible. Unfortunately, for those of you that don't know, a lot of the anticipation around Comic-Con is really what the MCU is going to do next, what DC is going to do next, and any like new shows, new movies that are coming out and are going to be presented there. And what happens at Comic-Con is that the majority of these like big showings actually happen in a specific hall called Hall H, which is notorious for having one of the longest lines at any convention ever. It might be the longest line. And in order to get to, let's say, the like Warner Brothers and MCU panels on Saturday afternoon and evening, you had to get in line at Hall H Friday morning at like 5 a.m. I think some people that got in line at 12 p.m. on Friday were like some of the last ones to get a wristband to get into Hall H the next day to go see the MCU stuff and all the DC panels and everything. Needless to say, I did not waste my Comic-Con waiting in that line. I wanted to experience everything else that is available at Comic-Con, and there's so much more. There's so much more than what's going on in Hall H. And even though the majority of the big news that comes out of Comic-Con is going to be what the MCU is doing next, what DC is doing next, I think one of the big ones in there was also like Walking Dead and the Berserker comic and show that's going to come out with Keanu Reeves. So obviously all those are going to be big. I think they also had Lord of the Rings, the new Lord of the Rings show. They had a panel for that, but that was on Friday, and people were actually able to get in for that. And the what was the other one? Star Trek. The Star Trek shows and series that they have on Paramount Plus. So overall, I was not going to waste my time trying to get into Hall H, but there was so much more to do, and I did get to visit some really cool panels. One of the first panels that we went to on Friday was actually the Marvel animation panel. The Marvel animation panel was really neat because they took all the like What If series and the new like X-Men series and all that out of Hall H and the overall like Marvel MCU panel, and they did a separate Marvel Studios panel just for animation, and it was really awesome. I was so excited about it. We got in and we were able to see Well, first of all, they actually showed us the whole first episode of season 2 of What If. I'm super excited about What If now, and what's gonna happen there. In the first episode, you kind of see the direction that they're going, and just I'm super excited for it. And they also showed us the whole first episode of the new I Am Groot series, the short series, and it's really funny, and it was actually really good. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't know what was gonna come from it, but it's actually really good, and I think it's gonna be just some fun little shorts that you can watch with the family. In that panel, they also showed the big one was X-Men, right? X-Men 97, and they showed the artwork for the heroes that are going to come out on that show and the villains, and I mean it's going to be nothing short of incredible, honestly. It's very nostalgic, of course, but at the same time what they showed is going to be really cool. And I'm not going to go in too deep into what was announced there. I want to save a lot of that for the podcast with the rest of the guys. But I do want to talk about like my experience with these panels, right? They did show the new Spider-Man animated series. It's called Spider-Man Freshman Year. They already announced a second season for it, so they have a lot riding on it. I don't know what to think about it. They showed us a couple clips. They showed us the heroes that are going to be in it, and I'm optimistic about it, but I'm still gonna wait and see what comes about from it because it's not what I thought it was gonna be. Yeah, I think that's the best way to say it. Overall, the Marvel Animation panel was awesome. The creators of each of the different shows came out and asked and answered questions, and there's a whole Q&A for every panel as well, right? To see like how some of them started their careers and how they got to where they are now, and yeah, so I'm super excited and jazzed about all of that. Another big panel that I went to that I personally really wanted to go to was the DC Comics panel, where so this is the comics, not the universe, the cinematic universe. The actual comics. I wanted to see what was next, and this one was really cool because the focus of this panel was, yes, to say what's coming up next for DC, but also they wanted to invite newcomers, right? Especially with all these movies and shows coming out, there's gonna be people that never read comics before that are gonna want to approach comic books and reading them. And the whole purpose of this panel was to show off the new stories that they're releasing and where they can just jump in and get to it right away. There is some really cool stuff on Constantine. It's like a prequel series to like the Hellblazer and all that. So if you're a fan of Constantine, that's really cool. There was this really funny one which they actually give away. I have right here the very first copy. It's called Jurassic League. It's the Justice League as dinosaurs. It's really crazy. It's really funny. We're actually going to give away one of these, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that one was really cool. And I think the coolest thing about that panel was at the very end, Bruce Campbell came out because he is actually writing his own comic with DC. And I thought it was pretty funny to see him in that panel. He came out later on as a special guest. And I just thought it was weird because we had just seen him in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And I was just not expecting it at all. And him to come out on a DC panel nonetheless. And it was really cool to see him there. And he was super funny. And he was talking about his new comic book that he's writing with DC. And I'm really excited for it. And I think it's going to be really cool. And again, it was pretty dope to see Bruce Campbell in person. Another panel I got to see was the Marvel Comics panels. There was actually two that were back to back. There was one that's focused on their current Judgment Day storyline, which sounds really dope. And the way that whole Judgment Day storyline is moving forward is really exciting. And they kind of showed bits and pieces of what to expect. And it's crazy because they have like the Celestials. And for those that only watch MCU, you know what Celestials are, especially from Eternals. but they have these Celestials, and the way they described it is they turn into these like monsters, which is like, you know how Bruce Banner turns into the Hulk and says, "You won't like me when I'm angry." The way they explained it is this is what the Celestials turn into when they get angry. And what the Celestials are essentially doing is they're casting judgment on each of the different superheroes in Marvel Comics. And it is crazy. So there's this big all out war with the Celestials, but at the same time, there's single one shot issues of different characters being judged. And I just think that's a really cool premise that they're going with. So that's the Judgment Day storyline going into Marvel. And then the second panel for Marvel Comics was, again, Marvel Comics, not the MCU. The second panel for Marvel Comics, they were just talking about what was next for them. They're talking about all their heroes. And for fans of the comics, I think that panel was really worth looking into. Um, I was super excited to see one of my favorite writers, uh, Hickman, was actually there. And for those that don't know, he just did the latest X-Men run, and honestly, one of my favorite comic book runs of all time. And he announced at the very end of this panel that he's doing one other thing with Marvel. So when they had asked him to come and write for Marvel, he had said that he only wanted to do two projects, an X-Men project and another one, which is this one. So it was really cool. It was really cool to see all that happen. And yeah, and to see one of my favorite writers up there. There's nothing like it, especially if you're really into reading the comics. One of the last panels that I saw is actually pretty crazy one. There's a new show coming out with Seth MacFarlane and Bill Nye, the Science Guy. So Bill Nye actually came out in a panel, and this was one of the longest lines in all of Comic Con to go see Bill Nye and like ask him questions and stuff. And it was pretty funny because it was in the same ballroom as the previous Marvel comic ones that I watched. So my wife and I just kind of just stayed in the same room, and but some of our friends are trying to get in, and they're like, "Dude, there's like hundreds and hundreds of people in this line trying to get in to see Bill Nye." I'm like, "Oh, they're not getting in. It's full." So yeah, it was crazy, but Bill Nye is hilarious, and I don't want to focus too much on it because it's not superhero related. But it was really cool. It was really cool to see him there, and people that grew up with him got to see him. And actually, the last panel that I saw is more of a like a geeky panel. It was focused. It was called Law and Thunder, and they actually got four lawyers, completely like different types of lawyers, and one federal judge to look at Thor: Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and talk about how law applies in certain scenarios, but in like a jokingly way. So one of the things they were doing is they were talking about how, spoilers, how Wanda possessed the Wanda from our universe possessed the Wanda from the other universe to go and kill the Illuminati, and the lawyers were tasked with how would you defend the second Wanda in court, and so they're all like taking it kind of seriously, but it's still jokingly, and I thought it was so cool, and they just kept presenting different scenarios. Like another one was for Thor: Love and Thunder, they're talking about Mjolnir, and they're like, okay, who does Mjolnir belong to? And they're going into like possession law and all these things. Like, does it belong to Thor? Does it belong to Jane Foster? Does it belong to Valkyrie because it was left in Asgard? And it was just really funny to see like how people geek out even at that level, right? And they're like high in their profession. I mean, one's a federal judge, but even then, they're still there at Comic Con because they love these stories, they love these heroes, and they're just kind of applying what they already know in real life to these fictional worlds, but because they love it so much. And I thought that was really cool to see how they like give back and start these really funny conversations. And honestly, it was probably one of my favorite panels too, just because seeing other fans on a panel and go to that level, That was really cool. Aside from that, there was a lot of cosplay. I mean, people go all out for cosplay. One of the sessions we went to was a cosplay session where they're just inviting anyone who's never cosplayed who wants to learn more, and they're just talking about just being a cosplayer and what that looks like and how people can help each other. So that was really neat. And yeah, yeah, all those panels. There's so much to do there. There's so many panels to go to. Aside from the panels, there were uh, different sections for different activities per se. There was one section that was just for board games, which I actually really enjoyed. Those that know me really well know that I really like playing board games, and a lot of companies will go and present their new board games at Comic Con. So we went, and I was there obviously with my wife, but we were there with a few other friends, and we were actually able to play some of these board games. And you can walk around, look at all the different games they have. And we actually sat down and played this game called Doomlings, which we really liked. My wife and I ended up buying it because it was so funny. Uh, but yeah, then and that's what we ended up doing. Getting those board games, and there's a lot of Dungeons and Dragons fans, so there's like different packs and dice and stuff that you can buy for that. There's another area that was actually a LARPing area. Those that don't know LARPing, I think if you watch the Hawkeye show, they're the people that kind of do like the live action fighting. It's called live action role playing. That's LARP, and they actually had a LARPing area at Comic Con. And I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty cool. People were getting really into it. They're having a lot of fun with it. People like watching were cheering, and everyone kind of had their favorite. It was really cool. It was really dope to see all of that. And then there's the big main area of Comic Con. And this is where just everyone comes out to give away free stuff, to sell merch, and just go all out. Like, this main area is massive. And everyone comes out. Marvel Comics, DC. We were there with we were in the Netflix booth. They were giving away free stuff because of the Sandman show that's gonna come out. We were in the Paramount Plus area. They were giving away free stuff. Star Wars, Lego, Hasbro, like releasing new Legos and new toys. And yeah, it was crazy. It was nuts. Me also being a video game fan, you guys know I'm on the Quick Scope podcast. I tried out some of the video games there because Street Fighter, I mean, even Street Fighter was being debuted at Comic Con. And they actually had booths set up so you can go and play Street Fighter. And that was really awesome to play. I played Street Fighter. Square Enix was there, kind of releasing some of their new mobile games. And I was able to go up there on the tablet and play the new mobile game. And again, they just give a bunch of freebies, stickers, pins, like fanny packs, bags, even shirts. Like, we got some pretty cool shirts for free, and obviously like this whole stack. These are all comic books that they were giving away. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. Just that whole section is really awesome to walk through there, and just see how the fans like really go for their stuff, right? Like, for what they like. And honestly, this is one of the like nicest events in terms of like the people that were attending. Like, everyone was super nice. You can just talk to anyone in line, and just because I feel everyone just feels comfortable with one another there. Like, you don't feel judged, and you know you're not going to be judged. Especially for the people that are dressed up. Like, you just want to take pictures with everyone, right? Like, some dude's dressed up as Captain America. I want to go take a picture with him. I think I took a picture with a little R2D2 robot. That was really cool, and yeah. So there's so much going on, and just everyone's so accepting, and then there's this whole big main area where everyone kind of just gathers and has fun. And honestly, that was really cool. There's not just like big names there too. There's like smaller names. They're like, one of my favorite comic books is Black, and Black Mask was there, and I actually was able to go up to the booth and talk to the people there, and like the person that does the artwork for the comic was there, so you actually get to meet some of these people in person, and I find that super awesome that they have the big names like Disney Plus and Marvel and everyone there with their booths, but they leave room for these smaller booths too to go out and promote themselves and yeah, like all these indie artists and indie writers, like it's big for them to be able to be at something like this. Lastly, the last thing we attended was actually the masquerade, and the masquerade was crazy. It essentially is a contest for the cosplayers, and they go up and they have like 30 seconds to a minute to go up and show off what they're wearing. And a lot of times they would like reenact a scene from the movie of what they're cosplaying as. But honestly, that was like one of the funnest shows to go and see, and everyone kind of support each other and cheer each other on. And I think there was like 30 different cosplayers that showed up to do the masquerade, and it was really fun. It was really cool. We had some friends there that have been to Comic Con several years, and they kind of just like told us what was going on. So when we got into the masquerade, we didn't know what to expect, but it was super cool, and we had a lot of fun going into it. So my Comic Con experience, even though I did not get to go to Hall H and kind of see like the big announcements, especially the Black Panther announcements, all that. Despite that, overall, Comic Con was just an amazing experience. My wife and I can't wait to go again. And hopefully, we'll see some of our fans there, some of you guys. So, yeah, thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this short vlog. Thank you.